All right, I am joined in studio by Mr. Don Posh of indiGO, your allies for independence, and we thank Don for coming in at least once a month and talking about issues that affect our aging community and how we can find the services that we need or have to have or other things that kind of out of our control, and that includes either a nursing home option or a home care option. And in a general sense, I know that nursing homes have always had a bad rap, but there's been more. I was just thinking of this about nursing homes that back in the 50s, I think they're getting better care now, even though there is a shortage issue of caregivers. But you look at the facilities, obviously, and technology and everything has made some improvements, but yet it doesn't feel like we've really made some improvements. And most of that has comes down to the caregivers, and there is a real issue or shortage of caregivers or quality caregivers. And I know this just out of personal experience. It's just hard to find those caregivers in a facility. And so a lot of people are turning to home care. But how is that different than what's happening in something that you brought up was home care cooperatives? How does that really help with caregiving at home?
Well, a cooperative. Think about a lot of us live in these rural areas, and we all have electric cooperatives, so we're fairly familiar with how a cooperative works.
Sure.
Recently, a family member passed away that was part of a cooperative, and there was a substantial amount of money that came back from the cooperative after the capital credits are retired. So you're part owner. You're getting a return on your investment as a customer.
Okay.
So and if you were to compare our rates to like in the southern part of the state where XL Energy is uh, dominant,
Right. Yeah.
we have some pretty good rates. We don't think so because we're accustomed to the rates we're getting.
Right.
But if we did a comparison, we'd go, "Oh, okay, I get it."
Yeah.
And and after you have so much time invested in that cooperative, you get an annual check.
Hmm.
I've been getting, $100 every night, once a year, you get $100 back for all the years of service, and you're a member. I've gone to the meetings where I've been invited to go to the meetings for the cooperative, and actually went to the big state meeting way back in La Crosse when they were talking about expanding their nuclear power, and had a chance to grab the microphone and talk against that.
Mm.
And you, with a cooperative, as a member, you have a say, and they might not listen sometimes, but
Yeah.
we're talking about a large amount of people in an electric cooperative. But in this home care cooperative, there's most people don't even know that this one exists. I've brought it up at several instances. Cooperative for home care, you kidding me? Never heard of such a thing. Well, this one's been in operation for about 20 years in Watoma, Wisconsin, which is a rural area.
Yeah.
So if they could serve a rural area in Watoma, why can't they do it here? And one of the advantages is that the employees are member owners. So they have a stake
Huh.
in what's said, what's done. It's a democracy all the way, because as a member, let's say there's a policy change because they want to cut costs. Well, management doesn't make that decision without the employees, because the members are the employees,
Yeah.
so they have to vote on this.
Yeah.
Is this policy going to be beneficial to the people we serve, or is it only going to be beneficial to the bottom line? So that way you have more voices making a difference in how the place is run. And when the employees are members and they receive some of the profits in the end, they're going to work harder to make that business successful. There's a lower
Sure.
turnover rate.
Yeah.
That's got to be huge. I could imagine it must be horrible to be a manager that has a constant help wanted sign up that's been there for like 30 years.
Yeah.
Like we hire always because we're always understaffed, we're always underpaying people, but the profit takers on Wall Street are making the money instead of the
Yeah.
people that are doing the sweating, bleeding, and doing that hard work that's psychologically difficult. They're not getting
Right.
the money.
Yeah.
And that's why the turnover rate is so
Well, and most
high.
nursing homes are privately owned. They're usually, private citizens who own this business
Mhm.
of home care and or nursing homes. And like you said, the employees don't have a vested interest in doing so much, and a lot of the mismanagement or however it happens, like you said, the turnover happens because I know that some caregivers are younger, they're less experienced. It's a younger generation that has a different attitude, and they don't necessarily want to do this type of work, but they know they got to do it. And then they want to protest. And what does management do? They can't really enforce employee rules. You're not supposed to be doing this. You're supposed to be attending to the residents in the facility, and management really can't enforce the rules because someone will just say, "Well, I'm just going to quit," or they can't do any sort of corrective stuff. In your example with the co-op, again, these are invested employees. They are employee owners. And I'm assuming with the residents, they're also part of that equation, are they not? How do these people who are being taken care of, how is their voice heard?
Well, their voice is heard in the end. And the thing that got me going on this was a few years back there was a Native America Calling. There was a show pertaining to the abuse of elders and
Oh yeah.
institutions. And one caller called in, and I happened to be driving, so I didn't get what reservation it was from. But the caller said, "Hey, we have our own nursing home on our reservation,
Mm-hmm.
and the first thing is that we have a higher caregiver to resident ratio, so they're not overworked. They're taking enough time to take care of the people they're taking care of,
Yeah.
and they're paid more. And then the turnover rate is so much lower." And many years later, all this that kind of came back to me, and that's why I'm talking about this now, because they were very happy with the way their system was running, but it wasn't owned by a corporation or a for-profit type situation.
Yeah.
It's when and a lot of these healthcare industries are owned by Wall Street,
Yeah.
big investors that expect a certain amount of money. And it seems like the money's always coming out of the worker. And one of the things you mentioned earlier was, you know, these younger workers coming in. Well, how do you expecting somebody to work for not enough to live on and giving them
Right.
always understaffed, more work than they really can handle? They go into this work with this idea that, well, my heart says I want to take care of people that need help, but I'm running out of the room because I've got because somebody didn't show up again, or somebody
Right.
quit
Yep.
again, or they called in, and my wife was worked as a CNA when we first met, and she did it for close to 10 years and just got burnt out because every day it was like so and so didn't come in. So I had to take care of so many more people. And you can't, you got rules, you got to get people up. You're forcing them to take showers when,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're getting people up at 5, 6 in the morning that maybe used to be night people.
Mm-hmm.
So they're not happy either. So we got to look at a better way of doing this. And I don't see this caregiver situation getting any better unless we make some drastic changes. Now, you mentioned the for profit business previously, and there is also a conversion. You could convert a for profit business into a co op.
Okay.
And another example of a local co op or employee owned business is Nelson Lumber. So what kind of service do you get there? I mean, some of the things you think about, Woodman's that just moved from the southern part of the state up and put a big store in Eau Claire. That is another employee-owned business.
Hmm.
Well, when the employees have that stake, there's just like, well, why would I quit? Because it's like a profit sharing.
Right.
The
Yeah.
better I do, the better the business does, the better I do in the end
Yeah.
financially
Yep.
or benefit wise. I can ask for benefits, or we collectively as employees can ask for something better as far as benefits, or maybe we want dental, but we'll take a little bit, we'll pay a little bit more towards it, something like that. But they have a say,
Yeah.
and without that say, I think it makes a big difference to, well, I'll just walk out the door. This is getting to be too much. I'm working too hard, and then there's the competition. The wages are generally not that great. And one of the things, I went to an Iris and family care meeting here in Hayward some years ago, and a lot of people talked about how important the programs were, and I asked the uh, the elected officials at the time, the representatives that were listening. I don't know if they were hearing, they were listening.
Yeah.
And basically, I said, well, why are we paying the caregivers in the back door instead of the front door? Meaning that we're paying this low wage, which makes them eligible for food stamps and eligible for heating assistance and all these other programs because we don't want to pay them in the first place. And then you got these people that have these kind of jobs going into the grocery store and pulling out a food card and having the people sneer at them when they're in line, not realizing that this person works a 40-hour job.
Mm-hmm.
That's really unfair. And just think how that feels. It's like discouraging. Why would you want to work there when you could maybe get a job at a local retailer for an extra $3 to $5 an hour more?
Yeah. Yep. Yep. It's becoming an issue. So, when are you starting this cooperative?
Don
is
has enough on his
is
plate right
is
now.
this
He's busy.
so again, you're not indigo isn't doing anything about a care cooperative. You're just bringing up the topic of this is an alternative way to do stuff. And is the co-op that's in Watoma, how are they doing overall, and how long have they been operating?
They've been operating for about 20 years.
Oh, really?
There's
Okay.
co-ops all over the country.
Yeah.
There's not as many
So
as
this
we'd
isn't a
like.
new idea for home care.
No, this has been going on for a good 20 years or more,
Wow.
and it's just quiet.
Yeah.
And it's not happening here. The idea of talking about it and bringing it up in a little article is to maybe spark some ideas out there.
Yeah.
I'm not a home care manager, but if you're a home care manager, maybe some other people that you would take your investment and look at doing it that way,
Right.
starting something up, trying something new, trying a different way. Because recently, some a nursing facility in Price County had closed. Where do
Mm,
those people go?
yeah,
How do and did it have to close? Could it have been converted to a co-op and possibly survived?
yeah,
But you got to pay people. You can't expect people to go out and work for not enough to live on. That's not really
yeah.
fair to expect that.
Well, and home care again has some um, built into it some costs that are less because one, you don't have a facility to
Right.
pay for, and all the HVAC and the mechanical and all those costs that go with having a nursing home facility or a assisted living facility. And 77% of seniors don't want to go to a nursing home.
That's right.
They'd rather stay at home because it's where they're at. I have a father-in-law who is getting up in age, and he's very comfortable in our basement. We keep the door open so he can come out once in a while, but he has his own little kitchenette down there, and he's has his TV, and he's happy. It's great. I'm glad we can provide that. But my concern is when does it become an issue when he can't care for himself, can't cook for himself, can't get up the stairs anymore to get out of the basement. What do we do? And my wife is working a job at a care facility, so she already has the mindset of what to do to care for somebody. And I told her, I said, you could probably just get a job as a home care person, and you're employed to take care of your dad.
And that's yeah,
You know,
that's kind of part of the Iris and Family Care program that are set up by the state of Wisconsin. They do
okay.
an assessment on how much care a person needs. That comes through the ADRC,
Oh, okay.
and they do usually it's an annual assessment. So, do you need 10 hours, 20 hours, 40 hours, 60 hours? So that assessment comes down to how much money the person has per month to pay or per week to pay. I'm not sure exactly how the paying is done, but that way you get to be in your own home.
Yeah,
And like you, my dad lives with us.
yeah,
So he has access to the full house, and we're going to build an apartment so we could be downstairs because it's harder for him to go down there.
sure.
We'll
Yep.
just need another bathroom.
Yeah.
One bathroom for 3 people is a little bit tough
Yes.
sometimes. But we're managing, and I know families all over are dealing with these kind of things.
Yeah.
All it takes is an accident or a diagnosis and your life gets changed very quickly.
Yeah.
But who wants to go to a facility? It's that smaller percentage is probably people that don't have their own home. He said the
Right.
article says 77%. That's from AARP. It was a survey done by AARP, and they're saying that 77% want to live in their homes. And there was a decision made called the Olmsted decision. There's a Supreme Court decision that requires least restrictive environment for people to reside in their home.
Mm-hmm.
That meant and it was brought on by a couple of people with disabilities that were pretty much forced to live in a nursing home instead of in the community.
Yeah.
And those kind of decisions help to bring forth the idea of home care, because home care is relatively new. If you think about it, it hasn't been around that long. It was probably there for a certain class of people that could afford it, but it wasn't set up like it is now. And the way that I understand some of the home care agencies work is similar to how I work. I have a home office and I work out of my home. We have a main office that they visit
Right.
or I visit,
Yep.
occasionally, but that way they're closer to the people that they see, and they go to the homes and provide the care needed to get them through.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's showering, sometimes it's, there's a lot of maintenance on a human.
Yep.
There just is.
Yeah.
So, and when it gets to the point where you can't do it yourself, or at least some of those things yourself, you need a little bit of help.
Yep. And again, with assisted living facilities or other nursing homes, I don't, that term isn't really used a whole lot now. It's, assisted living, or I forget what the other word is. What's besides nursing home? Why
I
am I drawing a blank?
I don't know any
Anyways,
other terminology for that one. And
there
they bring
is
up
one.
they bring up assisted living more because that is I had a relative that used assisted living, and that means there's you can have communal food and so forth,
Right.
and some of the things are provided for, but for the most part you take care of yourself. Maybe you don't do your there's laundry
Right.
service and some of the service,
Activities.
and it's like you have your own apartment,
Right. Yep.
and it's your apartment is located and somebody's not coming in constantly.
Yeah.
But then there's extra charges for who sets up your pills, if you're
Hmm.
not doing that yourself. And that's how that works. And they're relatively expensive.
Yeah.
If you were to look into them, you'd find out they're generally out of the price range of the average person.
Well, and I don't know, this has been an issue because of our baby boomers that
Hmm.
are all becoming seniors and getting to that age where there is now some dependency on care of some sort. And it's this bubble that the entire country has to deal with. This has really nothing to do with just Sawyer County or Price County. It's a national issue. There's shortages of home care facility, not home care, um, in care, or facility care. I don't want to keep calling it nursing homes. I don't know why. Anyways, there's a line, there's a list. If we were to get my father-in-law to a nursing home, there's already 20 people ahead of him,
Right.
and it's a 2-year wait.
Right.
And it's like, well, we got to get him on the list. Well, to get him on the list, he has to be on Medicaid or Medicare, and he doesn't qualify for that now. And when he does I mean, we want to get him on the list now so that in 2 years, when his cognitive decline gets to be something that needs a little more care, we'd be closer to the top of the list by then. But most facilities say, well, you can't get on the list until they're on Medicaid or Medicare and have these state features happening.
Hmm.
And it's like, what do you do?
And how do you
And
know 2 years down the line he's not gonna still be okay to be
right.
at home?
Yeah.
That's how do I project that? There's
Right.
no way for you to really project where that's gonna be, and that that's really difficult. And you did mention that, yeah, with the baby boomers, it's a little bit, it's nationwide, but really, when we looked at some data from the last census, you'll find that our northern rural counties are increasing in population in 65 plus. There's a lot of people that they come here to retire.
Yep.
That's kind of I'm done working. I'm going to move to my cabin, and that's where and then it something happens to one or the other,
Yep.
and or you get to the point where you can't drive anymore, and we don't have as much resources, and it just seems we're not ready for this.
Yeah. I was reading another article. Wisconsin, Sawyer County in particular, was talking about it's a beautiful, vibrant place to live, but it's also a rural county with a growing aging population. According to the U.S. Census Bureau, the median age of Sawyer County is 53.8 years old, compared to 45.5 years old for the state of Wisconsin as a whole. So again, in these more rural counties such as Sawyer, we have a larger population of people that are 50 and older that
Hmm.
want to be out here. And there's many reasons people choose this area. It has a strong sense of community, a beautiful natural environment with a variety of amenities and services for seniors. But it also does say here there's challenges associated with aging in rural areas. Again, access to healthcare, transportation, and it's just hard to find affordable housing. You know, that we've I've talked with several business, county organizations, city organizations. The biggest problem with getting good employees and healthcare providers is housing and
Mhm.
affordable housing.
Yeah.
Well, then our senior community has the same issue. They need to find affordable housing because they're on Social Security, they're on a fixed income, but there's nothing that is $600 to $800 a month for a one bedroom, studio sized place. And how do they afford that? Then you add into this a home care element, and what's the cost for that? Um, but again, as you're saying, the cost for a home care cooperative, you're really investing in yourself,
Right. Right.
and it's going to be you're going to spend the money regardless
Right.
for care.
Mhm.
Home care could be less expensive, and again, you're going to get a better quality product from that cooperative. So my question to you, when are we going to start this?
Once
Because it's
again,
something it's needed, but yeah, you're right.
yeah,
Who can start this, and how does it start?
I think it starts by doing a little research. So somebody that's in the field already that's frustrated with where they're at would be doing some research and talking to organizations that already exist. What would be best for our community?
Yeah,
And can I start it? You know, if you were somebody like a director of nursing at a facility and you said, "Well, hey, I heard about this. Can I do that?"
yeah.
And you would gather up the people to start it out and hopefully.
Form a board and a nonprofit,
Mhm.
and that's how it starts,
Yeah.
and go from there. And
Yeah.
then take. I'm assuming again, since this home care cooperative you said has been around for 20 years, there must be examples of rules and regulations and manuals
Oh,
and
absolutely.
all that stuff is out there.
Yeah, it's out there, and like I said, they're nationwide, and there's different structures. There it's done differently in different places. Inner
Okay.
cities do it different.
Sure, urban
Um,
areas have different
yeah,
needs and services than rural
yeah,
areas.
but then they don't have the transportation issues that we have.
Yeah.
So, and you mentioned, transportation is so huge because once, if you're living out here in a rural area, it, a mile from town is a mile from town. How do you get to town to get your stuff once you find you can't drive anymore?
Yeah.
It's
Yep.
you can't walk it.
No.
With your groceries, how does that
Yeah,
work?
we
So,
live 15 minutes from downtown Hayward, and our my father-in-law uh, gave up his keys, and he relies on my wife or I to run the errands, or to bring him along when we do our errands, and it works out. But what if he was on his own,
right,
and didn't have that vehicle to drive? Now you have to worry. You have to maybe rely on transit, Namakagon Transit, or some other public service, or like you
indigo's
said.
transportation vouchers
Oh,
program. We
yes.
also have that. And that works for people that are 65 plus and persons with disabilities.
Yeah.
So how that works is people get a vouchers for, I think right now we're doing about 150 miles a month.
Okay.
So it works in the way that you need a ride. Maybe you have a relative that's been giving you rides, and the cost of a ride is, if you're the one in need of the ride, how do you judge what that's worth?
Yeah.
I got to go to town. I want to go get my prescriptions. I need to go to the grocery store, maybe stop here and there. Well, if you're on a fixed income like Social Security and you're saying, well, that ride to me is, it's $50 or whatever,
Yeah.
well, our program gives 58 cents a mile to the driver. So being that after COVID, it seems like, well, COVID helped us lose a lot of drivers.
Mm-hmm.
So we encourage people that maybe have a neighbor or somebody that's helping them to do the driving, but then instead of the money coming out of the pocket of the person that needs the ride, it's coming out of our
Okay.
system.
Yeah.
And it is a very successful program. Sometimes there's some things that our transportation voucher coordinator has arranged some really awesome rides where sometimes you use your whole year's worth of miles, but you go to a family reunion in Madison or Milwaukee or somewhere far away. And part of the thing too that I think about is that years ago families stayed a lot closer together.
Yeah.
And if you're moving, let's say from the Twin Cities to Sawyer County and you're leaving your family there, you left part of your resources behind.
Right. Yeah.
And that's why I think that article was written the way it was. There are some difficulties with retiring in a rural area. It's beautiful. It's
Mm-hmm.
gorgeous. We do have a good sense of community and everything that was mentioned in that article, but there are a lot of barriers.
Yeah. Yep.
Winter can be, and people that have been here for many years, usually we have our way of doing things that's set up to the distances we travel to town. Maybe you shop every 10 days or every 2 weeks, and you
Mm-hmm.
have a big freezer and you always have food on hand that'll probably be, I probably have 3 months worth.
Yeah. Yep. Wow. God, I just keep coming back to say, okay, you got this great idea. How do we get this organized and how do we motivate people? And like you said, there's people who might be in a management position of some sort of care, whether it's a facility or doing home care individually with two or three people. And then how do you organize with other people who are doing this and creating this nonprofit organization and getting the co-op going? I really think there's something there. It's needed, and how do you get those people motivated to do that sort of stuff? I don't know.
Well, I think
Like you said,
it's going to take some manager that's really frustrated with the way that they have to treat their employees due to the constraints of the corporate model.
yeah,
I think that they're just. Could you imagine if you're in that situation, changing to, wow, my employees are happy. I don't have to deal with the stress of knowing that you're not paying them enough,
yeah,
knowing that everybody that you're hiring is probably going to walk out the door in a year
mm-hmm,
or less. So that's hopefully talking about it reaches somebody that sparks the idea. That's
yeah,
that's what I was hoping for.
yeah,
Hey, one thing I want to get out before we're out of time.
yep.
I'm going to be at the
You got
senior
about four
center in,
minutes
oh,
here.
I got 4 minutes. All right.
Yeah, plenty.
I will be at the senior center in Hayward tomorrow during
Oh,
lunch
okay.
and going to be demonstrating some assistive technology devices there. And I want to, all the people I met the last month, I've been all over. I've been in Winter and St. Croix and Hurdle, Shell Lake, Spooner, and LCO at all these different caregiver conferences. And all the people I talked to
Mm-hmm.
met some really awesome people. And some of those visits have resulted in going to home visits and helping people out. So that's been really great. And before I go, you did mention the drought.
Yeah,
And one thing I did notice is that, they're talking about the leaves are 50% and peak, and no, they're not. The trees are so happy after the drought for getting rain that they're green.
yeah.
I look in the yard and my maples, there's some of them that are changing, but those are probably the ones that were more stressed.
Yeah.
And when you're cruising around and you're looking, it's like, well, is it real? Where's all those colors they're talking about? And it's like, well, I'm finally getting water after not having any for 2 or 3 months of
Yeah.
summer.
Yeah.
So just kind of noticed that one of those little things you kind of pick up as you're cruising around.
And you and I cruise around a lot. I like to take, you have to drive for your job, so you get to look at several different counties of country roads and stuff. And I just sit here and I go out once a week just for a drive in the forest, and it's been a lot of fun. I love doing it. Well, how let's talk about if people have any questions, how do they get a hold of you? I show a cell phone number of 715-919-4932. Is that
That's
still
my direct
valid?
number, but we
Yeah.
got staff that, the thing is we cover these 8 counties and the 4 tribal communities. So I have some great people I work with that do the same job as I do, Leanne Granados and Angie Musloff. Angie covers Douglas County and Leanne covers Bayfield, Ashland, and Iron, as well as Bad River and Red Cliff.
Okay.
And that number is 800-924-1220 to reach our main office. So if there's things that indiGO does or just needs some information about aging and disability, we could hopefully point you in the right direction.
Yeah. Cool. Again, Don Posh is here with represents indiGO, and Don is a independent living specialist for Burnett, Washburn, Sawyer, and Price counties. And Don, I always appreciate our conversations because I think you and I are in a life cycle that's parallel to each other, and
Exactly.
we both have some very similar life challenges that are happening, and it's great to share between us. And I hope other people at least benefit from that. So appreciate your time coming in, and your friendship and your advice and some of the tools you bring along. And I want to mention the LCO Elder Center. Have you seen the progress on that?
No, I haven't, but
It's amazing.
I did meet with Rosalie Goki,
Okay.
and I told her I will come out there as soon as anytime I want to. I don't only cover those counties; I cover LCO and St. Croix.
Yeah. All right. Don Posh, thank you very much. It's 9 o'clock. It's time for